Hey everyone. Welcome. We are about to go live. Wait for people to be on here a little bit. As you're coming on, just always remember, make sure you say hi. Let us know if you're a first timer here. It'd be awesome to say hi to you.
Hey bro, I'm here. Just give me video control. My computer was being disproportionately slow.
Okay. All right. Let me give you access, right, for the...
Please. I almost just knocked myself out, literally. Gave myself a concussion.
How'd you manage that one?
The have it all thing. I couldn't pull down the thing, and when I pulled out and the tab, it got stuck and the thing swung down and smashed me in the head.
That's the second time it's done that, no?
Well, it turns out the decal's trying to kill me. So no more decal.
Gotcha.
It wasn't funny. Like, I literally almost knocked myself out.
That's not cool.
No.
Buonasera, Stanislava, and hello, Costa. Welcome.
Hey guys.
Give it another minute here.
Mm-hmm.
Another exciting installment. Yes, we hope so. We very much hope so.
This one's going to be about how to not render yourself unconscious. Literally.
Hitting them right between the eyes on that one, huh?
That wasn't funny.
You'll be laughing at it soon.
Once the giant lump on the top of my head goes away.
You want some ice?
No, it's okay. All right, let me get the post up.
What'd you say?
So let me get the post up.
Okay. Should we do a Passover special?
Sure.
Jew it up.
1 second. Let me just get the post up.
Jew it up.
1 second. Is my mic okay, by the way?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, I'm good.
You good?
Mm-hmm. You got the lead?
Got the lead? What does that mean?
Like the lead in for today?
Well, I mean, what's Passover all about, right?
I'm not a good Jew. Well, it's free of entrapment in a spiritual sense.
Yeah, I was gonna say to like exit your own exile, if you will. I had an interesting.
Exile is a good part.
I had an interesting
exit your own prison.
Yeah, exit your own prison. I had an interesting thing before we go down that road that I'm actually curious to gauge your all of yours opinions on. So I don't know how many of you guys listen to our podcast on a regular basis. Obviously, we get approached by many people to come out on the podcast and share what they're about and what they're doing and things like that. And I had a really strange experience. So I usually, unless I know the person well or I know the content well or something like that, or I've asked them to be on my show, but usually when people come on, ask to be on our show, I'll do like a pre-interview. And during the pre-interview, I just get a sense of like, are they a good fit for our podcast? What do they want to talk about? Can they deliver value to you guys? Things like that. So I had a conversation with somebody, and I have to say that on the phone, we actually had a really good conversation. It was interesting. I could see that we could add some value. And I asked him, I was like, what do you think we should, what could I read up about you or this and that? And he's written a whole bunch of books. And one of them really caught my attention because the title was really, really interesting. And I said, part of what he does is he trains salespeople. And I was like, look, I'm not interested in like a hard close selling podcast. It's not our audience. It's not what we do. Do any of your books actually speak more about what we were going to discuss, which was kind of like overcoming that plateau that entrepreneurs hit inevitably and like quit and things like that. So he was like, yeah, read this book. It's got all of this amazing information, tells a lot about my story, this and that. So I finally got the book. I started reading it this morning. I got through about 50, 60 pages. And I have to say, like, my skin crawled for pretty much the entire time that I was reading it. Like, crawled.
Crawled, not goosebumps.
No, like the opposite of goosebumps.
It's like manipulation and control tactics.
It was basically like the first part of the book was how to not give a fuck, which you know me, like I love that concept. I'm all about that concept. But a couple things that were said there were just so against everything that we teach and like we talk about. And I feel like if I would have read that book 5-6 years ago, I would have been more open to that methodology. It's just today, especially after what we experienced in Colombia with the fact that it's like the masculine side of things, when people are like super masculine, as much as it perturbed me before, like people like Grant Cardone and the guy from Warrior, Garrett White, like as much as I just, they're amazing guys and they do amazing things and like just does not resonate with me at all. And that was before Colombia. So now this guy's like also from the school of Grant Cardone. And it was just like, I'll tell you a couple of things and then I'll give you like my conundrum. So one of the things was he was actually using, and I found this hilarious because we used the same guy for a completely different reason. He actually used Trump as an example of not giving a fuck in a good way. And I was just cracking up because when we were doing our branding and Lolita was asking us like, who is like the, what's the way that she phrased it? Who is like not the enemy or like, but more like the antithesis or like the person you least see yourself like, and both of us in like a half a second, we're like Donald Trump. So this guy's like, he's using him as an example of like what, not giving a fuck. And I was like, wow, okay, that's gonna lead to an interesting conversation. And the whole time I'm reading the book, I'm not like, I don't want the guy on the podcast. Yeah. I'm thinking like, we're gonna have a really interesting conversation because it's gonna have to go back and forth. Like, I'm definitely gonna be challenging this guy's beliefs. I'm not bringing him on to have like him spit all this stuff out. Like, I'm gonna have him have to think. And then the other stuff is he basically said that the way to change your life is start listening to the voice in your head. And he's like, as soon as I started listening to the voice in my head, that's when everything started working. And I was like, what? Like,
well, his experience with it could just be like, I see to an extent of like, yes, giving, not just pushing off the ego, but whatever. I don't understand the concept because I didn't read it. Obviously.
No. It was literally like the voice in your head has been trying to talk to you all this time. You just don't listen. Now
I could put a positive spin on that, depending.
Exactly. So this is what I said. I said like, maybe we're talking about the same voice. Maybe we just distinguish the voice as coming from the heart and not from the head, and it's different. Maybe he's just, again, I wasn't reading from a place of like, this guy's an idiot or anything like that. In fact, I think a lot of the messaging is stuff that you and I talk about all the time. It's just like different spins, which I thought would lead to a really cool conversation. So I woke up in the morning and I'm like, I was in this conundrum and I'm like, well, do I bring this guy on the podcast or do I not bring the guy on the podcast? Like, will this serve our audience or will this not? So Mark Krasner actually came over last night. So he was here and ran this idea by him and Fanny, and both of them were like, listen, I think it would make for an awesome conversation. However, I think you should prep him before, because like, and my thinking would too, like, if I bring this guy on and he thinks he's gonna like do his whole thing, and I'm just basically like challenging every single thing that he says, it's gonna be a very uncomfortable podcast for him.
Sure,
I
sure.
didn't want him to get on here and be defensive. So I reached out to him today and I said what I said, and it was a very like non-confrontational, super open, like, listen, we just have different views. I'd love to investigate more about what this, and this, and this, and this. And his response, kind of what I figured, was, you know what? Then I'd rather not do the podcast. Because a lot of it just seemed to be very ego-driven. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like so dominant, just like, oh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like that's the thinking in the sales world.
Exactly. So I'm just curious, because it was, honestly, I don't know the last time I've actually done anything where I was like, I just felt like the person wasn't a fit.
It's good that you're in a place that you know what fits and what doesn't fit for you.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting just to notice and like be very present to what was happening in my body. And the more interesting part was that I was listening to what was happening in my body, and I wasn't judging the person. Mm-hmm. I wasn't like, oh, you know, they're wrong and this and that. I was listening and I was like, interesting that I'm having this kind of reaction when someone speaks this way. And that's why, like, I wasn't no to him being on the podcast. In fact, I thought for my personal development and my personal growth, it would have been amazing to have that conversation.
Sure. Well, look, I mean, depending on who the person is, if you were approached to do a podcast and somebody's like, I'm going to challenge all your beliefs, is that okay? Depending on where you are as far as your comfort and your personal identity, if you're really solid in your own faith, then yeah, you're open to discussion. It's not going to thwart you at all. Given just, you know, from the snippets I'm getting from his personality type, like that would be extremely challenging for somebody like him.
So here's the funny part.
Total threat to identity.
In the book, the whole part of not giving a fuck was that you don't need acceptance from everyone. And one of the things, like, he had a really challenging childhood, and he wanted to write about it. And he shared this example about how his parents were like, don't write this, please don't write this and that. And his response was pretty much like, fuck you. You know, like, this story happened. It's going to help a lot of people. And I was just thinking, like, this was one of the questions I wanted to ask, is like, was that the best approach? Mm-hmm. Like, do you honestly believe that was the best approach? I mean, is there another way that maybe there was a concern that you just didn't want to hear from them, right? And they were trying to communicate something to you. And because of this, like, because look, you know me and you've known me for a long time. Like, do I give a fuck? You know, like, it's just one of those things. And I've learned through the years that while that's a approach, it's also super detrimental.
Yeah.
You know, and I just feel like he hasn't gotten to that point yet.
Well, can I offer something?
Yeah, that's why I'm bringing this up. It was
so it's interesting that you said that, because I kind of created this distinction for myself this morning or this weekend. So like the not giving a fuck, right? So there's like two sides to everything. Like, everyone's an asshole, and there's like the realized assholes, the non-realized assholes. So I don't think anybody gives a fuck, but there's two kinds of people that don't give a fuck, because people wear the I don't give a fuck as a badge of honor. So if we look at it, and if you think about I don't want to say less conscious, but let's just say differently aware. Right?
It's a different vibration.
Yeah, exactly. Like, nobody's unconscious. They're just different levels of awareness. So differently aware feels better to me than calling somebody conscious and unconscious, because it's like, conscious by whose measure? Yeah. Like, I hate when people say, like, we're like, even out here, it's like the conscious community. It's like, oh, good. And everybody else is like, so you're spiritual, we're all spiritual elitists and everyone else is shit. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Which is just like exact opposite of what spiritual elitism would be. So funny. Anyway, so with like not giving a fuck, when you're in survival mode and you're in identity threat a lot, not giving a fuck is a tool you use to judge other people so you don't feel judged.
Say it again. When you're in survival mode.
When you're in survival mode and you're doing the I don't give a fuck thing, you're using I don't give a fuck as a judgment on everybody else so that you don't feel judged.
Yes, agreed.
Okay. When you're I don't give a fuck in spiritual mode, it's because you're so well defined to yourself. Your faith and your belief is so strong. Your conviction and that, and you're also really malleable. The I don't give a fuck is more like the outside world doesn't, like other people's opinions doesn't shape my opinion of myself. My self-worth is intact. So it's really a question again of self-worth, which everything comes down to self-worth. When your self-worth is low, you need to control and manipulate people to find value, to like extract value.
Yeah. When
your self-worth is high, you don't look for externalities to extract that value, and I don't give a fuck, more like your opinion is not really going to shift me. So I think that's kind of like the difference in vibrational frequency there.
Exactly. So here's what my take. So clearly Donald Trump does not give a fuck. Okay.
Yeah.
His I don't give a fuck is from self-preservation.
Totally. He's in seemingly in survival all the time.
All the time. Like he is just in constant threat to his ego, and because of it, he's like, even when people are like, here's a video of you saying the exact opposite thing 3 months ago, his response, which is like not a normal human response, is like, oh, I didn't say that. You're like, I just showed you a fucking video. I didn't say it.
And on top of that, I mean, his view is we're under attack, the world's a threat, it's never been more dangerous. Like you consistently see language of him thinking the world is a big threat.
Yeah. So here's kind of my evolution through this I don't give a fuck, and I agree with you 100%. I realized that my version of I don't give a fuck when I was in high school and even college, the I don't give a fuck was like a katana blade. It's like, it's not I don't give a fuck and I allow you to be the perfect godly being that you are. It's like I don't give a fuck, and as you turn around, you're just like, chopping off their fucking head, and it's like, fuck you, I'll see you. You know? And I think even where we are, like if someone listened to what you were saying and is like, look, I'm very interested to bring you on. I have differing beliefs and I'd like to have an intellectual conversation with you. Would you be like, no, I'm not interested? Or would you be like, I'm super interested?
You know what? I would ask what the context is first.
Yeah.
Because if they came on there, if it was like, let's engage in just like poking around and developing this, like it's not about changing opinions or like me trying to alter your opinion. It's in a genuine case of like digging and having interest versus like, I'm going to try to poke holes in everything you believe. That would be interesting to me. I would say like, I'm looking for expansion.
Yeah, exactly.
So the conversation would have to feel expansive, not like I'm coming here to destroy you, that kind of thing. So I would just want to like understand like, okay, well, what's the context behind what you want to create here? If it's for service and the greater good, then even a little bit of uncomfortability on my part would be fine. And I would just say, look, I'm not interested in justifying my points of views. It's more about is this going to serve your audience? And are you genuinely interested in what I have to say?
Yeah. Well, so yeah, it was a very, very interesting interaction. He pretty much responded the way that my gut told me. And I'm really happy that I did it because I really didn't feel like bringing someone on and put them in a situation where I would make them feel uncomfortable. Because then it's like, I don't need someone to come on the show and just be defensive and like, that wouldn't have been a good conversation.
Totally. Look, I mean, again, I'm proud of you that you're in a place where it's like,
I was proud of me too.
Go with the gut feeling, and it's like something just feels off over here, not in alignment with who I am anymore. And again, it's not like a case of judgment. I even noticed for me, like I have a situation with friends right now where I basically told them like I don't spend time with people who operate this way. And like literally, and the part of it is I can feel that there's like I'm hanging on to like anger, not anger. Maybe it's a little bit too strong of a word. I'm not angry at them. I'm just like there's definitely like an annoyance there, and almost like. I'm being a little bit father about it. Like father's going to teach you, you know what I mean? And I know I can let that go, and I'm not in a place where I want to yet. And at the same time, I'm like proud of myself because these are people that like the circumstances that happen around us. I just don't want to use their names because it's not about shaming them or anything like that. In the past, I would have fixed it. I would have been like, okay, well, let me tell you how we're going to fix it. Let me tell you what's going to make this okay. And part of it is like, I actually see that would perpetuate their pattern.
Yeah.
Like me trying to save them instead of like just letting them swim and kind of figure it out. Like I really just trust in people's abilities to get to their own shit these days. In my younger days, it was all about, I guess, same thing. I was using spirituality as control and manipulation in some way, shape, or form. And I know people like, I feel that people are very uncomfortable when I use words like that because they're like strong words when we think of that. And in essence, like every conversation for everybody, like whether you know it or not, you have some kind of agenda and you're trying to control and manipulate some kind of outcome. It's like not necessarily even in a strong way. It might be really subtle. It might be passive aggressive. I know plenty of spiritual people over here that say the nicest things, and it's like they're jabbing a knife into you at the same time. It's like passive aggressive spirituality, stuff like that. So it's like we're all doing that, and again, we're blind to our shit. I'm clear that there's all sorts of stuff I'm blind to. Yeah. So and at the same time, I'm proud of myself because these are like good friends and people that are operating a certain way that I'm like, you know what? I don't spend time around people who exude this energy. Period. And as good of a friend as you are with me, like currently, not in my ethos. And it's just, and that's not being angry. Like for me, it doesn't occur as necessarily being angry. It's like, I'm honoring myself now. I choose to vibrate here. And there's certain things that are important to me. And yeah, I mean, I have these rules and unspoken rules, but it's like, they broke a big one. And I was then I came about it. Like the things that people say behind their backs, I said to their face, and I was like, hey, look, not cool with me. So I guess it depends on how you're looking at it. Somebody can view it and say, hey guy, you're being angry, get over your shit. And I'm like, I feel like I'm honoring myself. Like I feel good about it. The things that come up for me is that like, I get triggered still. I have little things about it. So I'm like, all right. And then it's looking at why am I getting triggered? What's incomplete about it? And clearly it's not them. I have like triggers from other stuff. Right.
Yeah.
So just looking at that right now.
And are you, in these particular situations, are you in communication with people where you've communicated how that relationship impacts you? Or do you just kind of like, did you just bounce?
No. I was in communication. I actually told, there was an agreement, like a very obvious agreement that was broken. And when I started really
an agreement that they knew about?
Yeah. Like very clear agreements. And not just like a little bit broken, like big broken. And it wasn't the first time that stuff like I've seen stuff like that around them. Like it had happened many times. And then like how they dealt with it thereafter was like continuously breaking more agreements and like with awareness that they were doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And these are like people that I consider really good friends and super conscious. Well, like very conscious. And I was like, seriously?
Don't. There's no need for.
No. I'm not going to use their names. I was going to say I was hesitant to say that I got used, which is not necessarily the case. I think that would be like an over hyperbolic way of expressing it. Anyway, yeah. So it's there. I mean, my point is not to like drudge it up or anything like that. It's more of just I was actually proud of myself. I'm like, and it's not like they're cut out forever. It's just like until I feel that there's integrity there again, I'm not willing to spend time because these are people I've invested a lot of time with, done a lot of stuff for, stuff like that. And when it happened, the first thing that was requested of me was like, hey, can you help us with this issue? And I'm like, you just broke all sorts of agreements with me, and now you want me to help you transform the thing so that you can, like come back into good graces. It was a really strange thing at the time. And I was like, and it just, none of it felt good. So it just kind of continued like that for a few days. And I'm like, yeah, this doesn't work for me.
Huh.
Yeah. And I did it with love. I'm like, I love you guys. That's just it for me. I can't do this.
I think that was the thing for me. Like, I really, when I wrote that email, I was so hyper aware of every word that I was putting in there. Because I absolutely did not want to leave the person being made to feel wrong. I even said to him, I was like, you're doing awesome work and like, keep doing it. I mean, you're clearly making an impact. And I still think it would have been an absolutely dynamite conversation. It was just where they're at. But I was super proud of acknowledging it and not just like sweeping that shit under the carpet and just being like, nah, I just made some shit up and blah, 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 but like actually acknowledging it, to getting into communication with other people, not in my head, to like talk it out and just get somebody else's perspective on it. So it's not just like my own shit driving it. And then taking action and following through and doing all that stuff. It was really interesting. I mean, I'll say this. I know Tori and Dalton, who are in our Ascension program, are in here. So they've probably heard us say this before. It's like when you start playing a really big game and you start creating really massive things that you are going after, what happens is there's like a transition phase. So you say you want X. Generally, the first things that show up are definitely not X. In fact, it's everything that's not X shows up first. And it's everything that's in the way of you having X. So if someone's like, I want this body, or I want this amount of money in my bank account, or I want this job, or I want this relationship, what will naturally show up next is all the ways you suck at that thing, right? Like all of your
not that you suck, all the ways that thing is out of integrity. If there's integrity there, then it would be working already.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you already had that ability, you'd already have manifested that thing.
Yep.
And what I find to be really, really interesting is that during this process, there are what I call distractions. Things that kind of sort of look like the thing that you want on paper maybe, but you know that they're not really the thing that you want. Like your heart isn't like, this is an absolute yes. And your brain goes, well, this is kind of sort of maybe like what we asked for, or it could be a good stepping stone to kind of sort of what we asked for. And it's really good. So I'm going to take that. And I find sometimes that the universe or multiverse or God almost sends these things to you as almost a test to see, are you really committed to having X, or will you settle for X minus 50?
Yeah. So can I pop in real quick?
Yeah, 1 second. Let me just finish this thought. And sometimes the power of saying no and being in integrity with yourself for no other reason than it just doesn't feel like an absolute yes. When you say no, that's sending a very, very powerful message that says, I'm not settling for anything less than this thing. And in doing so, magic occurs. Because think about how few people in the world, when something looks good on paper, like you met the one, a business opportunity comes along, it might not be 100% what it is that you kind of want and created, but you're so excited. You're like, oh my God, it's almost kind of that thing. And you say yes, and it stops the rest of the progress. When you say no, as difficult it is as to say no in that moment, and I get that it's difficult. It's supposed to be difficult, right? It's like the devil wearing a mask to kind of look sort of like that sexy thing. When you say no, that's the universe's sign to be like, they're ready, give it to them. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say two things. Number one, kind of what you're pointing to is in this situation, even with like me and these friends, it's like a feeling instead of thinking.
Yeah.
Right? Because usually it's like we're thinking and strategizing, trying to understand. Well, if I just understand the why, and I collect all this information, it's like, and again, guys, you can look for yourselves if this feels true to you. Like, so often we try to understand like the genealogy of things, and ultimately, really, does it really matter? Like, if I knew why they did what they did, I just have more shit to be pissed off about, or stuff like that. It wouldn't add to like me having more clarity really, or like, who knows, right? I don't really buy that. So it's like feeling in, right? Like spending time, or does this feel good? Checking in again. Does this feel good? We had another conversation, check in again. I woke up today, I feel different. I'm in new energy. Does still feel bad? Like if things don't feel good, they don't feel good. Like bottom line, like nobody's in a relationship with somebody that they're like, oh, I can't wait to get into a relationship with someone that feels like shit. It's like you go into a relationship because it feels really good. When it stops feeling good, you start being out of alignment and stuff starts going wrong unless you do the work to put it back in alignment or you get the hell out. So that's number one. Number two, I was on a call this morning with like another coach that I'll probably bring on the webinar or like on a podcast or Facebook Live, maybe even this week. this girl out of Kansas, and she was mentioning she's just getting to that point where she's like leaving full-time work in about 6 weeks. And this is like what she's created. She's got this like, you know, starting to be a thriving coaching business, et cetera, et cetera. And as she's leaving this workspace, like another job opportunity popped up.
Exactly.
Right. Exactly. That's why I said like what you're talking about. And she's like, it was so tempting to take it, because it's like subconsciously there's programming there, and that programming is homeostasis. It's a vibration that pulls things towards you. It's like while you're making that shift, even when you're destroying, by the way, destory, like you're destoring something, like your body hasn't altered its vibration all the way. So it's like it's pulling those same old things back to you. So it's like you're destroying one thing, and it's like whoop, the next one just comes right. It's like when you're dating and you keep meeting the same people over and over again, it's because the story hasn't changed yet. So you're vibrating the same, and same shit shows up over and over again. And she had to like really be like, all right, Sam, like you asked for this, it's showing up, and you can go back and jump to homeostasis. She goes, I don't fucking want that. And Ilan and I had this ongoing thing where we say, it's like the universe standing behind you going, hey, but are you really sure? Are you really sure? And it's really just you. It's like the vibration, you know, and it's really just completely giving up, having that trust, and like emboldening yourself that something better than arise. And after 14 years, by the way, bro, like 14 years of landmark just passed, and the end of March for me. So you got to be like right around the corner right now for you.
June will be my 14th.
Yeah. So like Dad did it like in April, like any of us have done it in June or something. Yeah. And it's just like that emboldening yourself and trusting, because I was going to say in 14 years of coaching people and myself, I've never let something go or watched somebody else let something go and not have something better show up. Yep. Never. 100% of the time, or 99.9% of the time, who knows? And it might occur in the short term as like, this is more difficult. But that short-term pain for the long-term gain is so worth it. It's like, can you just stand there for a little bit of time and be a little bit squirmy, a little bit uncomfortable? It's like, yes, you are a drug addict right now. And you are not allowing for the addiction to take hold. It's like, so you can keep fucking putting that in your vein and going back to homeostasis and feeling like shit. Or you can have a little bit of discomfort, do the work, see what you notice, and then have this whole like beautiful great thing show up.
Yeah, it's just so interesting how that always happens. It's you expand, you say X, that stuff comes up, and then there's always a test. At least one, and it's a major one, and it comes right before kind of that big break. Tori was just saying life getting uncomfortable is a good sign of growth opportunity. We used to talk about, but I don't think we've talked about this in a long time, and definitely not on here, about resistance and how people, when they create something new, they're inevitably met with resistance, right? And a lot of people, when they feel resistance or feel uncomfortable, they go, I don't want to feel this way, because their context of resistance is negative. Like resistance is bad. Mm-hmm. So I'll put it in a few terms that you guys can easily understand. If you want to get fit and strong and you don't use resistance, you're not getting fit and strong. Right? A muscle needs resistance, tension, to rip it apart just ever so slightly, so then it can heal to be stronger and better. That's basically how you build muscle in your body. So if you switch your context of resistance, right? Like if someone was sitting on a couch, eating potato chips and watching Netflix, there's no resistance in their life. There's none. The only resistance might be like, do I get up off my lazy ass to go grab another bag of chips? That's it. Like, that's the resistance. When you go from, hey, I have X relationship with my wife or husband or whatever, and I'm committed to having excellent, juicy, like level 10 relationship, guess what? You're going to be met with resistance. You're going to have conversations that are uncomfortable. You're going to do things that aren't the normal way that you do things. And if you understand that in expansion, resistance is part of it, then you almost look forward to the resistance, because where the resistance is where your growth opportunity is. And the more resistance you feel, the greater your opportunity is to break through and have something amazing happen. So if you guys that are listening or watching this on a replay, if you just understand and recontextualize resistance for yourself and shoot for resistance instead of run away from resistance, you will speed up your growth exponentially. Like not even funny. And one of the things that I think Guy and I realized early on is that fear is what creates that resistance. Fear is what has that resistance be scary. Because on the other end of resistance, right? Like even when you break through the other end of resistance, there is going to be a shift in your ego. There's going to be a shift in your identity. You're going to show up a different person. To the ego, because it doesn't know what that other side looks like, it freaks the fuck out. So it makes the resistance seem really, really intense. That should be a huge sign for you, like, I'm on the right track. This is awesome. This is how life is supposed to look. And once you do that, it makes you excited to get to the edges of your box and just continue growing and growing and growing.
Yeah. So I'll just pick it up where you're leaving it off, which is, I don't care who you are. Well, I do care who you are, but I don't care who you are. And every belief has a limitation. Everyone, unless you're one with source, your belief got a limitation. So, and nobody's right in that, right? It's like, and your beliefs are just layers in an onion. There's that belief, and then there's the next layer to that belief, and the next layer to that belief, and so on and so forth. So I think where stagnation happens for most people is that they don't want to investigate the limitations of their beliefs. There's like a wall there. And it's like people lean away from their limitations because it frightens them that they might see something that they don't like, or they might have to take responsibility for something. Again, distinct from fault and blame, as we always say. You know, and it's like, it's that fear of not discovering your limitations, because it's like, oh God, I'm going to get a little identity hit here. I'm not as awesome as I thought I am. This kind of sucks to believe this thing. It scares people. Like Ilan and I, and we did Landmark for a long time. People are like, we don't know how you do that, because it's a little bit of a slap you around, like, approach to development. Sometimes it's like getting hit in a shovel in the face or like a punch in the gut. It's not always a pleasant feeling to be like, wow, fuck, I've been kind of shitty to people in my life. And that's not a great feeling. And that's the precipice of transformation. If you don't know you're being shitty, you can't do anything about it. You're just going to eat more shit. So, and everyone is going to eat it with you because you're being shitty. So it's like, either you're going to deal with, again, either you're going to have like this short-term potentiation, where you're going to just look at your shit and deal with it and look at it and take responsibility and then start recreating from that place, or you're going to keep doing that. So my invitation for everybody listening here, again, whether you're watching it live or on the replay, is kind of create this context for yourself where you like lean into your limitations, or like at least at the very minimum, have an exploratory kind of attitude that it doesn't really mean anything that you'd have a belief that has a limitation, and that it's good, like, to create a context where it's like, I live my life where I explore my limitations. I lean into where the walls are because I want to find out what's on the other side of the wall. It's exciting. That makes life way more exciting than I know who I am. You show up at these networking meetings or whatever it is in like normal life, whatever the hell that is anymore. And people are just, what do you do? Like the two answers that you've told 5 million times before, and it's like you go home, you're like, God, I'm bored and exhausted. No shit. There's like no re-exploration. Humans are about expansion and growth in our natural state. No child is sitting there going at 2 years old, I'm good. I'm not going to do this walking thing. Oh, talking? Yeah, that's not for me. I'm not good at that. Right? It's our natural state to explore. It's our natural state to grow. It's our natural state to discover and be excited and imagine and connect and be in love and all these kind of things. And somewhere along the way, we lose the essence to have, my own theories about that, which I'll leave off the table for now. But yeah, and it's beautiful, guys, to look for your limitations. It's exciting.
I have a question, and I actually asked this question about a different topic, which I don't want to start right now because it's going to take us down a whole other rabbit hole. But this aligns with that very much, and it's the same thing. Like my assertion, and guys, tell me if I'm off base. Like I know a lot of you guys here, and the people that follow us, you've been in the personal development space. You've read books, you've watched videos, you've been to seminars, like. You found us because of that stuff. You didn't like stumble upon this and be like, oh my God, who are these two guys talking? So here's my question. If you look back at your life, okay, and you actually analyze, and I'm talking like data point analyze, what's had you have the successes in your life? Right? Like when have you had amazing breakthroughs, and when have you achieved amazing things? My question is, given what Guy was just talking about with testing your limiting beliefs, getting past those limiting beliefs, if I were to ask every single one of you, when you did that in your life previously, as scared as you may have been prior to, but like when you've done it, didn't that produce incredible results for you in your life? Ongoingly, like you could just go back and be like, oh yeah, when I did that and then I did that, oh wow, that was pretty amazing. Like I felt amazing, I operated amazing, I expanded my life, I did bigger, blah 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 blah. Right? Here's my question. My assertion is that obviously they're on a little bit of delay, so like we don't get the here. So Dalton says biggest breakthroughs have come after the toughest challenges. I was terrified but created the largest changes. Amazing, right? Now we know this to be true. And I guarantee that every single other person that can respond would say something very similar to Dalton. Here's my question. Why do we then default to the other method, which when looked at produces little to no results? Like if we're looking at two models, one is I'm going to, do what I know and stay somewhat comfortable or like within a frame of comfort, okay? Or the other one is like, I'm going to look for every single thing in my life that I strongly believe, and I'm going to challenge that belief, and I'm going to go through it, and I know I'm going to meet with resistance, and I'm going to get to the other side, and it's going to be amazing. Why do we always default to this? Any ideas? Bro.
Oh, you were talking to me. I thought you were talking to the audience at
large.
No,
they're going to take a while to answer.
So recontextualize the question for me.
So if there's like two models, the push yourself, right? Like the
push or the pull.
Get to the other side, feel amazing, this and that. And then the other one is where we default. It's like staying comfortable, staying to what you know. I get it. The other one produces all the results. Like, why do we keep going back to the other one?
I think we've developed a society that's extremely front lobe dependent, and frontal lobe dependent, meaning like front of mind.
Yeah.
Right. So front of mind is understanding. I think people put an extreme amount of disproportional weight on understanding and rationale. So if I can rationalize it, and I could share it in a rational way, then everyone agrees and yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. If you guys look at a lot of the things that produce joy in your life and extraordinary results, usually rationale is not involved. Like starting a business, not rational. Falling in love, not rational, right? Traveling the world, not rational. There's a lot of like very things that scare the shit out of people. Don't go do that. All the things that people tell you not to go do, right? Because they, in their rationale, they can't come up with a reason that's safe to go do it. Following your intuition is not a feeling of safety, even though following your intuition will create more safety than any rationale will ever produce in your life. It's just like retraining that, like just following that intuitive feel is what creates this amazing life for yourself, and just showing the mind that loves rationale that following your intuition is totally rational.
Yeah.
It really is that. So for most people, it's like, I don't think they've ever even tested it.
I know that they have. Look, I mean, I don't care who you are, right? Life experience is life experience. Okay. So when you were a kid at some point, something happened, maybe with sports or school or something, and you did something that wasn't rational. Like you went and tried out for something, even though you were scared shitless, and it produced an amazing result. When you went to college, maybe it was the way you chose a college. When you picked a car, something in your career, like everyone's had breakthroughs and moments of like, wow, I feel so amazing right now. And I guarantee that moment didn't come from you being comfortable. It came from you going through that thing. So if someone looked back, like even rational, like I'm saying, like the logic brain looking back at just straight fucking data would still point to that this is a far better model. Like it just absolutely would. If we were split testing, it would be a no contest. And that something defaults to the other one. Mm-hmm. By the way, I created this question, which we could do at another show because it's really interesting to me. Like the other one was, now we're really in this mode of like surrender and letting go and finding our answers and wisdom and truth and opportunities all in that, right? Well, the default of humanity is figure it out with your mind and force an outcome, right? Like that's, and yet again, same thing. Like you look at surrender and letting go produced amazing results. And then we just keep going to these. I don't know that there is an answer, and maybe we bring like a neuroscientist because I'm sure there's something hardwired into the brain. And maybe it's because the brain is so geared towards survival and safety that the default conditioning is always like, even though it knows it produced amazing results, but because it doesn't know and every situation is unique, it's like, well, we've never gone there. Sure. And maybe that's what just like short circuits the system into that default mode.
Well, the brain is seeking the homeostasis. So it's like it's going to avoid anything that makes it feel like it's not going to go there. Yeah, it would be interesting. I think we thrive, or we have thrived. Like, for example, if somebody goes and has like a plant medicine experience.
Yep.
And I can tell you from like one of my friends, again, I won't use one of their names, but who had like a DMT experience. Okay. And then I asked him about it and he's like, I'm like, how'd it go? And he's like, it was okay. And then I investigated further after I did myself, what I realized is there's no rationale here. I didn't walk away with like a little gem quip that I get to share with everybody. My DM experience told me that blah, 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 blah. Like there's no fucking language for that stuff. And even coming out of my first experience, I kind of laid there for almost like an hour and a half and didn't say a word. And the medicine woman I was doing it with was like, how are you? And I didn't want to answer.
Why?
I was fine, but I didn't want to answer because the experience is so big that it feels dishonoring it by giving it language.
Got it.
And I knew the next question would be like, so what, like, you want to share anything? And the truth is I didn't want to start talking about it because I realized that the moment I started using language, it made it smaller than how big it actually was, right? So when I look back, because he had the experience a few months before me, I got that he was in a place in his development where understanding or having like a rational way of sharing it was so important to him that if he couldn't, it felt like it wasn't valuable to have that experience. Yeah. And I feel like that's how we are in life because it's like, well, I have to share with you. I need to give it. I need to justify it. I need to create agreement with everybody so that I feel better about my experience. And there's a place beyond that where it doesn't matter if anybody fucking agrees anymore. It doesn't matter if you can explain it anymore. As long as you can vibrationally feel it within your body and that feels true to you, that's enough.
Yeah.
And I think it's truer than any fucking thing that you're ever going to go through anyway.
Exactly. And that, by the way, is the I don't give a fuck that is very, very powerful. It's when you don't need or seek approval or acceptance from anybody else, where you love every single part of you so much and you are so grounded in who you are, not from an egotistical sense where you can't take in other information, right? Like like I said, may your cup be full and overflowing all the time, that you can continuously feel filled and give and receive, right? Always. But that's the kind of I don't give a fuck that to me is just like, I would love every single one of you to not give a fuck in that way.
But here's the thing. It's really not an I don't give a fuck. It's I'm whole and complete.
Exactly.
Right? Because like, honestly, maybe then it's time to stop using that languaging, because it's like the I don't give a fuck is I'm putting distance between me and you. And when you're looking for connectivity, it's you do give a fuck, but it's like an empathetic, I see your oneness. There's no difference between me and you. I understand your human experience through my body, through my mind, through my heart. We're that connected. I see that even though our circumstances might not be the same, I know your pain. I know your pleasure. I know all that shit about you because I know it within me. And honestly, like for me, it no longer feels true to say, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Because I do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my world is about giving a fuck. So I think there is a transition there. Of course, we could put out like spiritual spin we put on it before, but as far as conscious languaging is concerned, it's a low vibrational sentence.
Yeah.
You know, and it's cute and funny when you're saying it sarcastically, and you got to ask yourself, is that really what you want to create?
So I want to just acknowledge Jason Timothy Ward. One for dude, big ups on the Beatport chart. Keep crushing it.
It's awesome.
Jason's been following his passion, and it's coming. It's doing amazing things. And he wrote, just as an example, which I think is so true. He said, let's take money, for example. When I invest more, I tend to make more. However, I'm scared shitless of investing beyond my comfort zone to take my income to the next level. And that, to me, guys, like, look, when we're talking about connection, being one, the whole idea of just that complete and utter faith in yourself and the higher power, the flow of life, etc. The biggest thing I can share with you guys, and we've been doing this, like Guy said, for 14 years. We've been coaching people for at least 10 of those years, and it is as true as gravity. Okay? What I'm about to tell you. Look at your life history. And if it's worked before, it will work again. And the thing that you go after,
or not work.
Say it again.
Or not work.
And if it didn't work, it won't work again. Like when Jason, when you're saying like, I will, I've invested that, right? Guy and I have done this at escalating levels all the time. Trust me, every time we go to the next level, it is just as scary as the first time. Guys, we took out $160,000 investment to invest in our business and scale it up. That's a big fucking risk.
And pay a coach equal amount.
Exactly.
At the same time.
And like in that, I seek those moments, because what I do is I listen to my heart. My heart puts me in this scenario. When that scenario drops my stomach and I'm like, oh God, there's that feeling again. I'm like, great. Now I know this is exactly what I'm supposed to do. And guess what? It works every single time. Maybe not the way that you envision it to work. And I promise you, it works every time. Because if you're going to be bold, the universe will respond in kind. Mm-hmm. Always.
If you're bold, it's bold.
Yeah. So I had another interesting scenario where I got invited to one of the Brotherhood events. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about language. So you just reminded me of it. And the invite was for a dinner party. Somebody that's new and seems like really on the level, like really intrigued to meet him. And the invite was, come share a night where we make food and share stories about our fucked up families.
Oof.
Yeah. Oof. That exact reaction. And I was like, whoa. It was just like the language was so negative. The thing I had was, it was like when Mother Teresa was like, if you have a peace rally, I'll be there. If you have an anti-war rally, don't ever contact me. I'll never be there. Yeah. I'm thinking to myself, I was like, why would someone who's conscious want to create an event where the intention is to talk about fucked up family stories. So at first I kind of let it go. Then I got the invite again today and I saw it and I was like, you know what? Like, I know the guy's on the level. I'm just going to say something. And I was like, look, your words, and guys, this is really important. I really want you to hear what I'm about to say. Your words create your world. When you are sarcastic, when you are demeaning, when you, what's it called? When you like take jabs at yourself, like when you...
self-deprecation.
When you self-deprecate. God doesn't know the difference, okay? To the higher energy source, that creates a reaction in your body. And we are just as guilty. I'm not saying this as like I am out of this. I'm telling you, like, be extremely careful with your language. One of the greatest things we've been learning with Marcy, she is like a micro what's the word, like Sherlock Holmes for these kind of language. And it's amazing to notice what it creates. And so I told him flat out, I was like, dude, I would love to hang out. It's just the energy of this is so not like what I don't want to go sit in a room where 8 people tell me like fucked up stories about their family. I was like, what if we shared stories about how to have amazing relationships and what you've learned to create more connection and more, like, I'm fucking all about that. And it was just like this back and forth. It wasn't angry or heated or anything like that. Like, he absolutely got my point. And his context of it, it's like, it's funny, it brings laughter, it connects people.
Yeah.
Like, it's interesting that how much more sensitive I am now to that stuff. Truly, like, even 2 months ago, I would have thought that was an awesome idea.
Yeah. Well, you're paying attention to the vibration of it. And what I'm looking at now is just like, we used to say, don't say the first thing that comes to your mind. Yeah. Like, look at the next thing behind it. Same thing with energy. Whatever the first intuitive hit, it just layers. Yeah. If there's anything I've discovered about people, when you ask them something like, what's going on? Why is that happening? They'll give you their default answer like that. And it's never what's going on. So it's like, just like you say, oh, that's interesting. It's like, what's underneath that one? Oh, that's interesting too. What's underneath that one? And it's like, they keep going down the levels. And then they hit one and you see their face go like, whoa, because that's the one they never told themselves before. Like, so that's the truth, right? Yeah. So with or at least their truth. And with the vibrational frequency, it's the same thing. It's like, you're getting that hit, but that vibration's got layers to it. And it's like, all right, well, there's another vibration there. Let me like tap into that one, next one, let me tap into that one. And it's just like letting letting that biological system kind of give you its feedback. And I've just learned, I'm extremely intuitive. Ilan is too. I know instantaneously with everything, everyone, every situation, if I'm a yes or no within seconds of it being put in front of me. And I really trust that because I know that what's coming next is my mind kicking in with rationale to tell me why I shouldn't do that. Yeah. And if the initial yes was a really strong pull, I don't care what my mind says, what rationale comes next, what data is put in front of me, that yes drives the ship. Yep. And I'll continue to feel into it though. Because of like the resistance that the mind's creating is it's sensations within the body. And before I even get to that experience, if it's like a breakthrough experience, there's a whole opportunity there to break through a whole bunch of shit. So when I get there, I can actually do real work, not the work that saying yes to it brought up. Yeah. We got to wrap this up in 30 seconds. Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. Yeah, so that's it. So guys, for those of you listening, in the comment box today, I would love to just hear like an insight or two that you got out of this conversation. And I think like the takeaway really, or what I've been offering people is like, stop trying to create macro breakthroughs in your life. They're fun and they feel really good. It's like being a heroin addict. When you have like a big thing, like I'm going to change this whole big fucking thing. The next thing that happens is you are overwhelmed and frustrated. Yep. Because it's overwhelming to the mind to deal with big issues like that. So if it's like, I'm going to take down my money conversation, I'm going to like fall in love, and it's confronting as hell. If you look at the micro things that one would have to be conscious of in order for that macro thing to change, and you take on one little thing. So for instance, bro, we really got to go. What? We really got to go. That's fine. Go ahead. If you got to go, I'll finish up.
I can't because I shut this down.
Okay. So last thought here. If you really got to get there, then it's like, just, if you're upset at yourself every day, it's like you could take on my experiment for the whole week is when I'm frustrated with myself, instead of making myself wrong, I'll be gentle.
Yeah.
And that could be all you focus on. That will completely transform that for you. So I just offer you guys concentrate on the micro. All right, everybody.
Love you guys.
Okay. Bye.